Hello students, in this video we shall continue with the chapter of power sharing. We will be covering the concepts of why power sharing is desirable and forms of power sharing. Before we begin, let us have a recap of what we covered in the previous video. We understood the concept of power sharing using the case studies of Belgium and Sri Lanka.
Why is power sharing desirable? Students, power sharing is desirable for two main reasons: prudential and moral. Prudential reasons essentially highlight the practicality of power sharing. This can be understood with the help of a situation in Sri Lanka, as the majority dominated the minority and did not want to share power. The result was a civil war in the country. That is why power sharing is desirable. Let me explain this with the help of a simpler example. Suppose you are at home with a younger brother or sister and are eating a chocolate. Obviously, your younger brother or sister also wants to eat some of the chocolate. If you do not share it, it can lead to a fight. Naturally, everybody wants to have a share of the chocolate. Likewise, in the politics, if the majority does not share power, it may lead to distrust. The country, there can be a lot of agitations. People can have a lot of struggles against the ruling government and a warlike conditions, the way it happened in Sri Lanka, and will disrupt the political order. Now, the second reason, moral reason. Power sharing is very spirit of democracy. This means in a democracy, people have a right to be consulted on how they are to be governed. If the leaders are not accountable and can exercise unlimited powers, it results in dictatorship. That is why, world over, people want to be governed by elected representatives. Because if power is not shared, then what will happen? You cannot call it a democracy. The person who is governing can become a dictator, like in the case of monarchies, like in the case of other kinds of dictatorship or some forms of power sharing. The idea of power sharing came in opposition to the notion of undivided political power. One basic principle of democracy is that people are the source of all political power. We see this when we say a democracy is the government of the people, by the people, for the people, which clearly tells us the entire power is in the hands of people. Therefore, it follows that in a democracy, political power should be distributed among as many citizens as possible. In modern democracies, power sharing arrangements can take many forms. Horizontal distribution of power. Power, when is shared among the organs of the government. Children, organs of the government are the legislature, executive, and judiciary. So when we share power among these three organs, we call it horizontal distribution of power. Now what happens is all these organs are independent, they have their own work, but and all of them are placed at the same level. Such separation ensures that none of the organ has unlimited power. It cannot exercise unlimited power and and is at the same level. For example, even though ministers and government officials exercise power, They're responsible to the parliament or the state assemblies. Obviously, they can't simply do whatever comes to their mind. They are accountable to what they do and they are answerable in the parliament. Similarly, although judges are appointed by the executive, they can check the functioning of executive or the laws made by the legislature. If a law is unconstitutional, the courts or the judges have the right to speak against it. They can declare it null and void. So this is a system in which each organ checks the other organ. And that is why this system or this arrangement is called a system of checks and balances. And because all of them are at the same level, it is also called as horizontal distribution of power. Now, we talk about the vertical distribution of power. Vertical, which makes it very clear that is something is one below the other. We have a government for the whole country, which is called the union government. Then we have government at the regional level, which is also called a state government in our country, and it can also be called by different names in different countries. This system, what we do is the powers are all divided. They're written in the constitution. And if we divide the powers further and create a new level like we have in India, we call it the local self-government or the Panchayati Raj system. So what are we doing this? We are dividing power further for better administration. This was also done in Belgium when they created a new government called the community government. So this type of division of power from higher to lower is called as the vertical form of power sharing. Power may also be shared among different social groups. They can be religious groups, they can be linguistic groups. Again, I would like to give you the example of community government in Belgium. It, had powers in matters of, language, culture, etc. In some countries, constitutionally we give power to the weaker sections or a particular community in the country. Like we, give reservations to women in our country. We give reservations to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe in our country. This type of sharing of power with the weaker section or the minority, you know, is what is power sharing arrangement. This type of arrangement is basically done to give space to such people in the government and administration so that these diverse groups who otherwise would feel alienated or who will feel that they are not included, they would get certain powers. This method is used to give minority communities a fair share in power so that they feel accommodated, they feel they are included, and they are also important. Now, there is another way of sharing of power, that is power sharing among political parties, pressure groups, and movements. This is very easy or simple to understand. In democracy, the citizen have the freedom to choose among the various contenders of power. Such competition ensures that the power does not remain in one hand. Political parties, represent different ideologies and social groups. This is a direct kind of, sharing of power. When two or more political parties form an alliance to contest election, and if they win the election, obviously they can form a coalition government. This is a direct sharing of power. But sometimes what happens is there is another way or an indirect way in which power is shared with the people and the government. Now, who are these people? They can be traders, they can be businessmen, they can be industrialists, farmers, workers, etc. We share power in with the government through participation in governmental committees or for example, suppose the government has to make new laws for a particular industry. So what does the government do? The government calls the people who are the best or at the helm of these things, and then forms a committee and then takes their suggestions. So in these people, whether they are traders or businessmen or industrialists, they give their views, and this is how power is shared with them. They bring influence on the decision making process. So this is how power sharing is done between political parties, pressure groups, and movement. Now, we are also going to understand that last year, I'm sure all of you have given your exams, and we had these cartoon based questions, which have become very important as CBSE has introduced these questions in your board exams. So, just to give an idea, all cartoons in your political science book are extremely important and we should not ignore them. I've given this example here, of this German car. And this example, basically, you can see two steering wheels. And what does this show? This shows the problems of running a coalition government. So, children, I want all of you to go through all the cartoons and whatever is written below them, because any question can be framed on these questions. So, please do not ignore them. I think so. That's all about this chapter.